Hi, parents. So today I wanted to talk to you about the word morphology. There are so many words that you encounter with your child being in speech and language therapy, and morphology is one of those words that can be quite confusing. We don't often use it, or it has different connotations in different disciplines. So let's talk about morphology together. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm hoping to empower you so that when you're speaking with professionals or with your child's teacher, for example, if this word comes up, you know what you're talking about. And you can even advocate for your child using these kinds of words. So morphology, it is the study of morphemes, and morphemes are the smallest unit of language that carry meaning. So what does that mean, right? Let's break it down. So there are different kinds of morphemes. First of all, there are free morphemes. So just quiet, Micah. These are words that can stand alone. Cat, the, is, whale. Those are free morphemes. They don't need to be attached to something else to carry meaning. Then we have what we call bound morphemes. So these are parts of words that do carry meaning, but they're not a word by themselves. So that would be like the plural S. So let's say I say whales, that has meaning, right? And if I say whale, and then I add on the S, whales, that has a different meaning than just whale because that plural S means that there's more than one. So there are different kinds of bound morphemes. Let me give you one more example. What about So if I said big, and then I added on the bound morpheme I have the free morpheme big, the bound morpheme and I get bigger. Is changes the meaning of that word, right? So we have inflectional morphemes. These are morphemes that don't change the category of the word. So whale to whales, it's still a noun, right? Whales, that's a noun. But if we have other kinds of words that can change the type of word that it is. So if I say happy, happy is an adjective. It's describing something, maybe the happy child or the happy whale. But if I add ly to the end, I can turn it into an adverb. So it's describing an action. The whale swam happily through the water. So those are derivational morphemes. So they change the type of word from an adjective to an adverb. Or if I say teach and then I add the in this case, isn't meaning more than, it's meaning a person who does something, right? Teacher. So that would be an example of adding a bound morpheme to a free morpheme. And it's also changing the meaning, right? Because teach is a verb, teacher is a noun, a person, the person who does the teaching. So a little bit confusing, but no worries. We're going to practice it together. And the first thing I wanted to practice with you actually is counting out morphemes, because when somebody explains the rules of a game to you and they don't really make sense until you actually start playing the game and trying it out, I feel like it's the same thing here. So let's try counting out the morphemes in this first sentence, or these first two sentences. That cat is happy. He is on the fence. Okay, so we've got, why don't you pause it? And when you're done, press pause again, and I will tell you how many morphemes there are. So that cat is happy. We can't say hap because hap doesn't mean anything in this case. He is on the fence. We have 9 morphemes in those two sentences. Now, oftentimes our kids with DLD, especially when they're younger, are speaking in shorter, choppier sentences, right? That oftentimes don't have a lot of morphemes. They're not using morphologically complex words. They tend to be using a lot of those free morphemes and not adding on a lot of different parts to their words. So now I have another example of a sentence that is more morphologically complex, or it sounds like a more advanced sentence, because we've added on a lot of bound morphemes as well. So I would like you to now try counting out the morphemes in this sentence. Pause the video, count them out, and then when you're ready to go along with me, you can start the video again. Okay, turn it off. All right, so I'm going to count it out for you now. We've got that, brownish, because when we say ish, well, it's like sort of brown. That adds some meaning. Cat is sitting. Ing means it's present progressive. It's happening now. Happily. We changed the happy to happily. We changed it into an adverb. On, now we're at 10. The wobble e, right? Because wobbly is wobble plus e to make it an adjective. Fence. So that one, if I've kept track correctly, that's 14 morphemes in that sentence. So you can see that when we help our kids learn different morphemes, we can help them use more advanced kinds of sentences. So sometimes when a speech therapist is saying, like, can you be quiet, please? We're almost done. Sometimes when a speech therapist is saying, oh, I counted your child's MLU. Sometimes they're counting those morphemes. So that's their mean length of utterance. And if they're doing it in morphemes, they're going through and saying, okay, each time this child talks, how many morphemes is the child using? And we know that morphosyntax, or using these kinds of morphemes and putting them together in sentences, tends to be very challenging for our kids with DLD. So that's why it's important for you to understand what on earth morphology, morphemes, types of morphemes, what these even are. Okay. And morphological awareness is super, super important for our kids with DLD, and often a very weak area. Now, why is this important? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Let's say your child encounters a new word. If they have some understanding of morphology, that can help them make a really good, educated guess. So I've got this word here for you. I'm guessing probably most of us don't know what phycology is, but most of us can probably recognize a bound morpheme in there, which is this part here, ology, right? We know other words like psychology, biology, neurology, all these kinds of words. And so that we know that ology means the study of something, just like morphology is the study of morphemes. So when a child can recognize that, they're halfway there, right? They recognize, okay, this word has something to do with the study of something. And then they just need to find out what this first part is. And that can also help them remember what the word means later, because at least they have that awareness. Okay, so this must mean the study of something. And for those of you who didn't know, like me, it is the study of algae. That's what phycology is. So morphological awareness, that can help us when we're trying to guess or infer the meaning of new words that we hear, that we read, that we're trying to spell. And it can also help us with spelling and reading themselves. So right here, a lot of our kids with DLD would know, okay, SH says shh. But if we can recognize, actually, no, we've got this prefix. So a prefix is a little bound morpheme that goes at the front of a word. Miss, and miss means not. We're not going to say mishap. We're going to say mishap, because there's a boundary there between the S and the SH. However, in fishing, there's no boundary. Hing, that's not where the boundary is, right? So in that case, yes, we are going to make the SH together, say shh, fishing. So this is just a very small introduction into morphology. Morphological awareness, like I said, is very, very important for our kids with DLD. And it's important for you as parents to be in the know. I wanted to show you one more thing before I go, and that is something called Brown's morphemes. Let me just move this out of the way. So I got this off of Carolyn Bowen's website, but there's tons of charts like this available. And so when a therapist is starting out with a child and trying to help them with the area of morphology, oftentimes they go through the morphemes based on developmental order. So when kids are just starting to talk, one of the first morphemes that they learn is the ing, it going, me jumping, me drinking, these kinds of things. So ing, they learn when they tack that onto an end of a word. So that's called a suffix. Prefixes are at the start of a word. Suffixes are things we tack on to the end of a word. That's often the one that the child will learn first. Then they'll learn some free morphemes that can stand on their own, like in and on. And after that, we often see kids learning that regular plural S. So I think that says cars in this. Yeah, I'm going to zoom in. Cars in this case. Then after that, kids tend to learn the irregular past tense morpheme. Then we move on to possessive S. And then we've got uncontractable copulas. So that's like is and was, this type of thing. We move on to articles like the, regular past tense. I'm not going to go through all of this because you can just Google Brown's morphemes and go through this at your leisure. If you can't fall asleep at night one night, this is great reading to help you fall asleep. So this is just something for you to be aware of so that when you're trying to understand the therapist's goals or how you can help your child at home, this is kind of a basis. So if you're earlier on in your journey, this is something that can help you kind of have a little bit of a roadmap of what morphemes to target and when. And then we often have the average age in months that a child is expected to learn these words. So if you're wondering, is my child on track? You don't have a DLD diagnosis, you can take a look at these months. Of course, every child is an individual, and we don't want to get caught up in specific age ranges. We just want to help our child move forward, right? So I wouldn't be too concerned about that, but it just is a bit of an indication that if your child is quite far behind, speech therapy is probably going to be helpful for them. So that's about it. I wanted to keep this short and sweet. If you have any questions about morphology, feel free to make a comment, ask a question in our Facebook group, Developmental Language Disorder Community, and we can talk further. Thanks, parents.